I guess the first thing that I'd probably say about my work is that I was really interested in the idea of hand making, and also the idea of engaging a group of people in participating in that hand making, because lots of the projects that I've done at RMIT have been around model making and around models as a tool for design. And I suppose in my thesis project I wanted to see how I could test that same model making, but I could involve a group of people in that process, because that's always the way that I've engaged with design. Through my research, that led me to the German theorist Gottfried Semper and his idea on the original architectural act as being this knotting and tying of fibres around the fire as this original creative act. And Semper's main contribution was that he positioned architecture not as a remaking of an archetypal hut or an archetypal temple, but rather as this embodiment of ephemeral rituals of social interaction and dance and songs. So in a way I was interested in how could the creation of space be a creation of a communal space, and how could that be investigated through the process of physical making with a group of people. For my project, I basically got a group of people together and I designed a system, and that system was a system of weaving together strips of 3mm hoop pine ply. And the notion of this design was that people would come together and people would learn a simple system for weaving these materials together. And that it was really a platform for testing ideas of social interaction and ideas of community. The interesting thing that happened during the process was that I had made this assumption about weaving, that there'd be some interrelation between this over-under weaving pattern, the warp and the weft, and the social interaction that would happen with the people on the day. But it wasn't weaving where the most interesting interactions happened on the day. It was everything that happened around the weaving. It was when we ran out of parts to weave, and it was when we snapped one of the vertical sections, and it was when people were standing around and people were holding parts of the structure. I suppose one of the things that I found most interesting about actually having built my project one-to-one with a group of people was to then get those people's reactions to the project. And this is an interesting situation where the tectonics of the structure really informed how people engaged with the structure on the day. People said they didn't understand how it was going together until they actually started holding a part of it, and then they started understanding the tensions that were happening, and they started taking responsibility for the part of the net that they were weaving. And that they actually felt that there was a delicacy in the structure that made them want to keep holding on to it and made them want to look after that part of the net. But the interesting thing about the woven surface is that you've got this isolated part of the net that people take responsibility for, but as it's been adjusted, that part is constantly reconnected back to the communal whole. I think for me the interesting thing about it is that it ended up being a platform for thinking about ideas of community. As I actually engaged in the process, I realised that there was no kind of sense of a durable community woven on the day. But the interesting thing was that it gave me an insight into people's interactions with each other. It wasn't a weaving really of people socially, it was this kind of entanglement. I think the most interesting thing for me was that even though this stuff happened around the weaving process was still this focus for the activity. And in a way, because of the net, I like the idea that there was this net structure to the shape, and in a way it became a net for the experiences of all the people on the day.